Hello everyone, welcome to StudyIQ. We will continue our discussion on economy. We are in the module growth and development, so we are towards the end of our discussion. We have started off with HDI. We have discussed all the reports which are published by UNDP, their HDR, and the different indices which are published along with HDR. We started with HDI. We discussed in detail about it. I have told you the calculation and all those methodologies we have discussed. We have talked about IHDI. Okay, why I told you in HDI we are taking geometric mean. Before it was arithmetic mean. We have made that difference clear. Geometric mean, if you take HDI, will be more sensitive to inequality. And we have also discussed in case of IHDI, we have used about Atkinson. We have talked about Atkinson method, which is used for all those discounting things which have done in IHDI. We have also talked about multidimensional poverty index. And we have talked about GII, we have talked about GDI, we have discussed about happiness index, okay, we have discussed about hunger index, all those things we have covered. And then we talked about in one another session stages of economic development, or we have also discussed about determinants of economic development, and we have taken up a specific discussion on capital formation, which is actually a topic in your syllabus. And we have discussed about the concept of incremental capital output ratio and all those things we have covered. So if you have missed out any of these videos, you can go back to that videos and watch that videos, so you'll get that continuity. Okay, so or if you cannot find it out, you can join the Telegram channel. You'll get all my videos over there, or you can get in touch with me here in this Instagram ID. So today we will be talking about a very important topic again, which is there in your syllabus. We will be going for sustainable development. Okay, so sustainable development. So we discussed in detail about economic growth. We have talked about development. Now we are taking it to one step forward, sustainable development. So what is sustainable development? It is actually that development which is sustained in future, okay, or sustained for future. So let me write that. It refers to that process of development that could be sustained in future. See, there is a very famous definition which is given by UN Commission, UN World Commission on Environment and Development. So UNWCED, UN World Commission on Environment and Development, which was headed by, or the chairman was Brundtland, very famous and known as Brundtland Commission in 1987. So in 1992 also there was another one, very important. You all know that Earth Summit, which is more important. But in 1987, in their report, UN World Commission on Environment and Development, or rather we call it as Brundtland Commission, the commission defined sustainable development as the development, very important definition, you can use this definition, very famous definition also, the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. Okay, so this is actually the definition which was given by Brundtland Commission in their report in 1987. So the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their needs. Okay, so it basically calls for intergenerational equity between generations. So it calls for intergenerational equity. So you have to keep a limit on carbon dioxide emission. So there is a limit for environment. So it also related to or connected with carrying capacity of the environment. So it is related with carrying capacity of environment. Okay, capacity, that is capacity of environment to absorb the impact of human activities. Okay, so it calls for intergenerational equity. See, this term is important, this carrying capacity. Okay, it is a capacity of environment to absorb the impact of human activities. Now, the features of sustainable development. What are the features? So mainly three features we have to discuss about as increase in real GDP. See, there has to be development, there has to be production. Without production, it's not only about conserving environment. There is a need of production. If you see here, that meets the needs of the present. That means without production, you can't simply keep on supporting the environment only or conserving the environment only. Okay, so increase in real GDP, that means growth is very important. Okay, then second one, social welfare. Second feature, social welfare, very important. That means here we are talking about well-being of people. So increase well-being of people. So growth is important, well-being is important. Third one, conservation of environment. So all these three are the important features which you can see in that definition. See here, you can see here the first one. When we talk about economic growth, it is all about increasing real GDP. So I can say first one is actually growth, economic growth. So when I'm talking about 1 plus 2 together, what is that? It is development, right? Growth with, when you're talking about well-being of the people, it is development. So this is what? Economic development. Economic development includes not only growth, it also includes the well-being of people. So 1 plus 2, if you see, it is development, and more broader concept, 1 plus 2 plus 3, if you see, that is sustainable development. So this is how you need to understand, and this is the importance. So development plus environmental conservation, that's what sustainable development. Okay, so first one, real GDP increase, that is just growth. Growth can be achieved without development also, if you're not talking about the well-being of the people. Development can also be achieved without growth also, if government is sponsoring everything. Even without growth also, you can achieve social well-being of people. But if all the three are there, then it is sustainable development. So I hope this is clear for all of you. Then if you talk about dimensions, what are the dimensions of sustainable development? Dimension, there's also there in your syllabus. Okay, so I'm covering it in detail. So we have economic and social and environmental. So economic, social, environment. Political factor is also important, but not when it comes to sustainable development. In this context, it is not important. So I'm not talking about political factors. Otherwise, when you're writing essay or in general answers, you have to write about political factors, economic factors, social and environmental factors, cultural factors, and all these things you need to write. But here, I don't want to talk about political factors because in this context, it is not actually important. Okay, so economic, social, and environmental factors. Now let's quickly look into the indicators of sustainable development. Can be asked as a question in prelims. Okay, so indicators of sustainable development. First one, green GDP. So first one, green GDP. So sometimes you use GNP also, green GNP, both are same in this context. When it comes to this context, it is same because we are not giving too much stress on the domestic or national concept here. We are talking about that importance is on green concept. Okay, so whether it is GDP or GNP, it's okay, it's fine. You know the difference between GDP and GNP theoretically, but here both can be alternately used. It's okay. So it is the GDP which is adjusted for environmental degradation. Okay, it is the GDP adjusted for cost of environmental degradation. See, it is very difficult to calculate. It's a theoretical concept. Practically, it will be very difficult to implement. Some of the countries have their own methods. Now, we are planning for the method for this, but practically, it is very difficult. It's actually a theoretical concept. Okay. Second one, genuine savings. There can be a question from this topic. Genuine savings. That means savings for future actually. So genuine savings equal to, this will be equal to gross savings minus, okay, depreciation in man-made capital. So what do you mean by man-made capital? I'm talking about this machineries, factories, etc. Okay, so depreciation in that minus depreciation in natural capital. See, what do you mean by this natural capital? Anything which assists the production capacity, okay, but it is difficult to calculate this depreciation in natural capital. Anything which is assisting this production capacity or productive capacity will be considered as natural capital. Okay, so here genuine savings you can calculate. Gross savings, you already know what you mean by gross savings. We have, in the previous session when we discussed about capital formation, we have discussed about gross domestic savings. At that time itself I have explained it in detail. Before, when we discussed about national income also, we have discussed this concept of gross. We have discussed 16 important concepts related to national income. So here what is this gross savings? What is the difference between gross versus net? If you see net is equal to gross minus depreciation. Okay, so net is equal to gross minus depreciation. So you can see here gross savings, then depreciation is there, right? So if you see here, if let's say mark it as 1, this is 2, this is 3, this 1 and 2, if you see gross minus depreciation, you'll get net. Okay, so if you take this 2 together, that is nothing but net savings. Okay, minus environmental or depreciation on natural capital. Okay, so in that way also you can write, instead of gross savings, if you get option like net savings, it is also correct. The reason is gross minus depreciation is net. So instead of using gross savings, you can also use net savings by combining these two together. So I have combined these two together and I've made it as net savings. And then once you have net savings, then only consider this, depreciation in the natural capital. Man-made capital we have taken when we discussed about net savings. Okay, so I hope this is clear for all of you. That is about genuine savings. What are the threats to sustainable development? Threats to sustainable development. So firstly, depletion of resources. There are two types of resources, renewable and non-renewable. Renewable like solar, wind, etc. Fossil fuel are non-renewable. Okay, so renewable and non-renewable. Solar, wind, all this will come under renewable, so better to use that. Non-renewable, fossil fuels. See, even when we talk about water, even though it is renewable, but there is a limit for water. Okay, so for everything there is a limit, but wind and solar is okay. Okay, you can't pump more water, you can't keep on pumping water. Then degradation on environment. Degradation of environment. So in this, what all things will come, we'll have to write about pollution, deforestation. These are geography topic. Okay, deforestation, then soil erosion, salinization of soil, salination of soil. See, if you remember in the previous discussion, we have discussed in detail about green revolution, and I've told you one of the environmental impact of green revolution. We have discussed a lot of social impact. Okay, all those things we have covered, but environmental impact, when we discussed degradation of environment, and most important reason that we have discussed is actually the salinization or salination of soil, because more water which is pumped, the salt content remain on top of the land. Okay, so that led to salination of soil, and that led to reduction in fertility. So the land became infertile, and that became a problem. Then third reason you can write, or third, we are actually writing about threats, right? So loss of biodiversity. Loss of biodiversity. Okay, so animal, plant species are decreasing. Okay, so it is actually affecting the ecological cycle. I hope you know that. And availability of food is affected, availability of medicine affected, so everything is affected. Okay, ecological chain is actually affected, the balance is affected. So loss of biodiversity. Now what are the measures? Let's quickly see the measures also to promote sustainable development. Firstly, judicious use of non-renewable or renewable resources or non-renewable resources. Judicious use of non-renewable resources. Then you can go for development of non-conventional sources like biodiesel, etc. Okay, that means basically alternative. Okay, development of non-conventional sources like biodiesel, like alternatives. You make the alternatives. Then improve technology, use the renewable energy also in limits. Okay, so not only non-renewable, renewable also. Avoid production of non-biodegradable items like plastics and all. Avoid production of non-biodegradable items. Organic farming to be promoted. Use organic fertilizers, biopesticides, weedicides, etc. Cow dung, okay, all those things, manures, etc. you can use. Then price or product subsidy. We have already discussed the concept of subsidies in detail. So price or product subsidy should be replaced with DBT, and we have already done that. So because this product subsidy, if you give that lead to overuse of these items, so it has to be replaced with DBT, so that you can control overuse, and thereby you can tackle the wastages. Okay, so subsidies related I'm talking. So subsidies. Then government should go for market linked approach. Okay, like polluter pay principles. Polluter pay principle means you can go for pollution tax. Okay, subsidies on environment friendly technology. Okay, like incentives. If you are using solar cells, give more subsidies, and all those things we are doing. Community participation. In all answers you have to write this: community participation, local bodies. Okay, international cooperation, because this is not just a local problem, this is a global problem. Okay, so international cooperation as a must. One more topic I will quickly cover here, that is vicious cycle of poverty. Vicious circle or vicious cycle of poverty. The concept is actually given by Professor Ragnar Nukse. Okay, so NurkseRagnar. Okay, so it is a circular constellation of forces tending to act and react upon one another as to keep a poor country in the state of poverty. So in simple language, poor are poor because they are poor. Okay, so poor countries are poor because they are poor. They don't have investment capacity, so they are not investing, so they are remaining poor. Now here you can see the circle is like this: scarcity of capital, that leads to low productivity, that lead to low income, that lead to low savings, and that lead to less investment. Okay, less investment, and okay, all these are actually connected. So scarcity of capital, so low productivity means low income. All these are because of low capital. Okay, then low income means obviously you don't have savings. Okay, savings, so no savings, no investment is the reason for no capital. No investment, no capital, low productivity, no income, that lead to again no savings. So this is actually the vicious cycle of poverty. Okay, vicious cycle of poverty. Now poverty and crime also is connected like this. Poverty and education is also connected like this. So poverty is having so much vicious cycle you can draw. In all this will come in your imagination. So I hope this discussion is clear for all of you. I just want to discuss about this particular topic as it is there in your syllabus. So sustainable development, it refers to the process of development that could be sustained in future in simple language. So here we talked about the definition which is given by UN World Commission on Environment and Development and Brundtland Commission, famously known after. So development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. Okay, so it calls for intergenerational equity. We have discussed about this concept, carrying capacity, the capacity of environment to absorb the impact of human activities. And you see the features: increase in real GDP, that means not only environment conservation, increase in GDP is also important. Social welfare, conservation of environment. The first one alone, if you take, that is growth. First and second, if you compare, that is development. Economic growth plus well-being of the people. 1 plus 2 plus 3, if you see, that is the sustainable development. The dimensions, all the 3 dimensions, economic, social and environmental dimensions, have to be covered. The indicators, green GDP, I told you it's a theoretical concept adjusted for environment degradation, but it is very difficult to calculate that. Some countries have the method, but India is trying for that. Genuine savings, either you can go for gross savings minus depreciation in the man-made capital minus depreciation in the natural capital. Okay, I hope you understood what is man-made capital, what is natural capital. Or you can go for net savings by combining first and second, gross savings minus depreciation in the man-made capital, net savings minus depreciation in the natural capital. Then we have discussed about the threats: depletion of resources, degradation of environment, loss of biodiversity. Measures, that are suggestions, whatever you feel like you can write there. Okay, so vicious cycle of poverty, Ragnar Norkse, and this is the cycle. So I hope all the discussion is clear for all of you. If you have any doubt, you can get in touch with me here. You join the Telegram channel, you'll get all my videos over there. We have done hundreds of history videos, you'll get that, and all the economy videos. Okay, so see you guys.